Joe Thomas in the morning, and apparently, somewhere in between our production studio and YouTube was this miscommunication because the production suite said, "Oh yeah, yeah, we reconnected, reconnected, fine." YouTube said, "Not from where we sat." So we are back, and you missed some great stuff. I can't remember it all, but we do have some things to get into. And I mentioned this crazy idea that people are going to have me without a radio show, and apparently the inability to even connect to YouTube correctly or stay connected to YouTube correctly. But it's a teachable moment. So when the internet crashes and you have backup, you still have to make sure you go back and reconnect to YouTube. Joining us from the Convention of States grassroots director in the Commonwealth of Virginia, the great Nancy Koenig is on with us. Nancy, how are you doing this morning? And thank you for taking a little time out to visit with us, and for crazy enough inviting me to be a speaker at one of your events coming up.
No, I'm fine. It's a beautiful spring morning, and we're so happy to have Joe come to First Free Coffee on Saturday to help us celebrate Thomas Jefferson's 281st birthday.
Is it that many? Wow, I had no
Yes.
idea it was that many of them. But thank you for doing the math, because generally people who hear me do arithmetic say, "Joe, don't even pick up the calculator. It's not working for you." So what is the event? Is Jefferson's 281st birthday, which is actually that day, correct, Nancy? It is
Yes.
actually April 13th. But what are folks going to be doing? Is there going to be birthday cake, pin the tail on John Adams? What are we going to do?
That's a good idea. No, there will be a princess cake from uh, Albemarle Baking Company, and I have not had it yet, but the owner of First Free Coffee, the wonderful Steve Harvey, says it is absolutely delicious. We will have, after I give a brief introduction to Convention of States, Joe will talk. He knows a lot of history about Thomas Jefferson. We'll have a cake cutting. This will all happen at 6 p.m., but I will be there from 3 p.m. on, and I hope to have materials for children to make birthday cards uh, to Thomas Jefferson. I will also have a long list of wonderful quotes from Mr. Jefferson, and I hope you will have a chance to look through them and pick your favorite. We'll have an open mic, and you can tell why you chose that favorite quote from Mr. Jefferson.
So in here, Convention of States, and Jefferson was very much in favor of making sure that people, and I think this is one of his quotes that people misunderstand, but viewing the beginnings of the French Revolution, said a little revolution every now and then isn't a bad idea. And what George Mason did by creating this Article 5 in the U.S. Constitution, in my view, and I think Rick Santorum and yourself share it as well. Said, here's how we can do it without the traditional kind of Parisian pitchforks and torches things. Nancy, is that a good way of putting it?
Absolutely. And supposedly, the founding fathers had wanted to have two ways to amend the Constitution, but they'd completely forgotten about it until September 15th, which is 2 days before they signed the Constitution. George Mason said, we can't just leave it up to Congress because we know that power corrupts.
Yep.
And we're certainly in that situation right now.
Well, and you talk about we were playing, I think, in that weird period where the internet dropped us and we weren't live, but I was here, I was talking. But we were playing the clip, Reagan's clip, no government will voluntarily reduce its size. And that's what we're living through
Right.
right now. Is it just, where the bureaucracy, and it's this wash, rinse, repeat of continuing resolutions. Each successive one is, 5% bigger than the next one.
Absolutely. And a balanced budget
Mm-hmm.
amendment has been proposed in Congress, as has term limits, but they've never followed through. We need 2/3 to get it proposed, to get an amendment proposed, whether we do it through Congress or through a convention of the states. And then the amendment has to be ratified by 3/4 of the states.
Yeah, it's not an easy thing. People are like, oh, well, it seemed like it after the Civil War because we had only amended the Constitution 2 times prior to the Civil War, and then in the span of about 10 years, we did 4 new amendments to it, bringing us to the 16th, where they can just take your monies from you. Nancy Koenig here, tell people where they can find this event. On your Facebook or through the Convention of States Virginia page.
Right. It is conventionofstates.com, all one word, /Virginia dash, as in a minus sign, events. And there is a sign up there. You don't have to sign up, but it'd be kind of nice to know how many people are coming.
Oh, sure.
Again, Virginia, conventionofstates.com /Virginia dash events.
And First Free Coffee sees you there once a month anyway for just a monthly get together, as does Sam's Kitchen in Albemarle County, correct?
Absolutely. We're at First Free on the first Saturday of the month, just to make it easy, the first hour afternoon, so from 1 to 3. Sam's Kitchen is the fourth Saturday at 9:30 a.m.
And these are great ways, if you're curious about it, and I've run into folks who say, well, tell me about this term limit stuff. And there's a lot of nuance that goes on in there, but if you've heard people throw scare tactics around about the Convention of States, this would be a great time to do it. Nancy, I'm sorry for the delay to get started, but again, go there, come to First Free Coffee Saturday. What time does it start again?
Well, I'll be there from 3 o'clock on, but the cake cutting is at 6. That's the big events time. Oh, and one more thing about the First Free Coffee. After 6, they have a license now to sell beer, wine, and they have a meat and cheeses, a whole
kind
board
of thing.
full.
Yeah. Oh no, it's
Yes,
very
absolutely.
neat, and the Google reviews have been terrific about it. Nancy, thank you so much.
Well, God bless.
And I think
Thank you all.
my speaking begins around 5, and we'll be back with Congressman Bob Good in a moment. How are you doing this morning, Congressman Good? And welcome back to the program.
Good morning, Joe. Doing well. Great to be with you, my friend.
So this is a kind of a busy week going on in Washington. I know that the press is all up in arms over the idea that there'll be a Mike Johnson challenge. Again, this is another motion to vacate. I want my MTV there. But then the Mayorkas impeachment is going over to the Senate. Catch us up on what we're missing while these two headline-grabbing things are embroiling the House of Representatives.
Well, the first one, as it relates to the speaker, I think you've got kind of an army of one. Ms. Green has threatened to file a motion to vacate. I don't think there's a lot of appetite among Republicans in the conference to have a speaker fight right now, while there is great dissatisfaction with Mike Johnson as speaker because he has essentially continued the failures of Kevin McCarthy in terms of passing all the major material legislation with predominantly Democrat votes. And that is not a sustainable position for a Republican speaker. Very disappointing that he has not shown a willingness to fight, to take risks, to go to the mat, so to speak, with the Senate and the White House to try to get half, at least, of what we might want that would reflect the majority of the American people gave us. So there's great dissatisfaction with him, I would say. I don't think he has strong support. I think if he continues down this road, it'll only get weaker for him. However, when you're in a much more narrow majority position than we were a year ago, and the fact that he's only been in leadership for 6 months, I don't think he's judged by the same standard that someone who was in leadership for a dozen years and who had broken so many promises to become speaker, as the previous speaker was that position for him. So my suspicion is that we will not have a speaker challenge until after the election, and then we'll have the normal speaker contest, but it won't be the coronation that happens every 2 years where the de facto leader, the presumptive leader, is just rubber stamped. I think you'll have a real contest, and we'll see who else challenges for that speakership and whether Mike Johnson has majority support or not.
Well, and Congressman, and let's talk about that a moment, because the press as well, and I appreciate you taking us behind all the headline grabbing stuff, are like TMZ chasing Brad Pitt around, are chasing around this Ken Buck now, and we've talked about it on the radio program as well. They keep running this scorebook of how many Republicans have retired early or stepped down or just decided not to finish out their terms and so on and so forth. Take us into the realities as the November elections are bearing down on us.
Well, it's very concerning that we've had several members of the Republican conference who have resigned, as you know, before their term has expired. And none of them, other than Chris Stewart from Utah, gave us the reason he had was his wife is literally dying of cancer, and he wanted to be with her. And Utah is obviously a long ways from Washington.
Oh, yeah.
That was back last year. We were able to replace him, so we had a short-term disruption there, one less member for a short time. However, led by this former speaker, as you know, at that point, at least, 434 other members of Congress were willing to serve without being speaker, but Kevin McCarthy was not, so he resigned in December. We still haven't been able to fill that seat. As you know, every state is different in terms of their procedure for replacing a member of Congress who is removed or resigns or for whatever reason the seat is vacated during a term. So we haven't been able to replace Kevin McCarthy. We've got Bill Johnson, who resigned to become a university president at Youngstown State. Then you had us foolishly vote to remove George Santos, who was a strong conservative voting member. And it was my contention that we should have allowed the people of his district to decide if they wanted to retain him or replace him. Instead, we foolishly voted him out. Obviously, I oppose that. And I think it was liberal Republicans in the New York City area who were embarrassed by George Santos's conservative record. And they voted him out, and he was replaced by a Democrat, as you know. Then we've got Ken Buck, who resigned. Ken Buck was a strong conservative for many years, a friend of mine. I admired and respected his courage and his principles until about a year ago. He kind of went off the reservation. I haven't understood Ken for a year. We've had lots of conversations. I said, Ken, try to explain to me some of these different positions you've taken and so forth. Very disappointed that he would resign. And then, of course, Mike Gallagher, who's been a decent member. He's kind of a middle of the road Republican, kind of a typical Republican member of the 217 Republicans, more of an establishment type, if you will, but leans conservative. But inexcusably, I just confusingly, I don't know why he's resigning now. There's rumors that it's to try to prevent us from filling the seat intentionally. And I hope that's not the case. We will, I'm sure, discuss that when we return to D.C. tomorrow. There's some talk for expelling him this week so that we could replace him, because apparently I'm told, and I don't know the specifics in Wisconsin, but I'm told that if he resigns as of April 19 has been announced, then we would not be able to replace him until the November elections. It would be one short because of that. And that's desertion, quite frankly, if that's true. We haven't heard any explanation from him as to why he needs to leave now, why he can't finish his term, or if he's going to resign, why he doesn't do it immediately so that we can replace him.
Well, Bob, and get into that because I think this is becoming almost to me, from where I sit, a litmus test on everything that President Trump has talked about. These members are connected to things that are making decisions that are inexplicable to their voters, but somehow there must be other factors in their minds that are making them decide that going along with the House Freedom Caucus on conservative budgeting and that kind of thing just doesn't work for them.
Well, there has been some who've said, hey, Congress isn't any fun for us anymore. And some of that I take as a badge of honor, if you will. You do have some status quo folks, and that's not as much the resignations as it is those who are not running again. You've got the media's made more of it than it really is numerically, in the sense that, every 2 years you do have some 30, 40 or so that don't run again typically. Sometimes it's the majority, sometimes it's the minority and so forth. But some of the Republican establishment status quo guys, the moderate types, they're not having as much fun as we have tried to expose them over the past year and a half, as we have tried to actually fight for the things that we say we stand for, the things that we say the Republican Party is about, the things we campaign on. So I think we've made it uncomfortable for some members. I think they were fearful of a successful primary challenge. When a conservative challenges a moderate incumbent, that's a dangerous place for a moderate incumbent to be, because, as you know, the majority or the dominant influence in Republican primaries is the conservative base. That is the passion of the party. And so some of them are avoiding primary challenges. But my hope will be that we'll have a more conservative Republican Party in the House next year, obviously hopefully still with the majority. That's critical. And Senate majority, and obviously President Trump in the White House.
Well, and that's, I think you talk about the campaigning of conservatism. Has it ever been, and I'm old enough to have heard this argument made, the taxes are too high, you've diluted the economy, the money is losing all of its value, and it's making it harder and harder for people to make ends meet. Is this year, I don't want to say easier, but has the case been more apparent than it ever has been before, that just continuing to tack 5% onto the spending plans in Washington with money we don't have? I mean, it used to be we're taxing our kids. Now we're taxing our grandkids if we ever get there, to make this money back. Bob, is the case in all of these districts where these folks are leaving because it's no fun anymore? Are the conservative voices there? I know you were in West Virginia trying to help some folks. Is the case you're getting across to the voters? Are they feeling it in the grocery stores and the pumps?
I think you're onto something there, Joe. I think there's some things that are very different they've been in the past. I think, number one, people understand the border invasion is unsustainable. They identify it as the number one threat to the country, even in Virginia's 5th District, all across the country. People are scared, concerned, worried about suffering from some consequence of the border invasion. We've even felt in the 5th District with increased crime from illegals. Secondly, they're not afraid of the government being shut down. They understand that it's not a real shutdown. They understand the current track of the way things are going is unsustainable. And it's overwhelmingly the number of constituents, citizens of the 5th District, who will tell me, shut down the government until we get back on track, shut down the government to force spending cuts, shut down the government to force border security. That's new from where it was years past. And then finally, more specifically your point, I think rather than an abstract economic concept, a theory in a classroom or a textbook, people understand the spending is unsustainable. They realize they are suffering 40-year high inflation. They've seen what's happened to housing prices, grocery prices. They've seen the interest rate increase that's really made a mortgage about 60% higher. So just think about that. A mortgage that was $1,000 a month for a typical home when Biden became president is now $1,600. That's really harmful to the American dream, to young people getting started, to folks on, regular income folks, certainly. And then not to mention the anti-energy policies. They're suffering at the gas pump. They're suffering with utility prices and those sorts of things. So yes, I do think the case is easier to be made now than it ever has before. That change needs to take place, that what Washington is doing, this president's policies are doing, is harming the American people.
We're visiting with Virginia 5th District Congressman Bob Good, as we do every week. We're going to have to get Congressman Ben Cline in. He's one of the managers for the impeachment that's going to go on with Alejandro Mayorkas. A lot of folks are throwing that around as another distraction in Washington. So what are some of the things that we're going to be seeing coming up, or are these two items really going to consume most of the time in Congress this week?
Well, the House is going to officially send it over to the Senate, and Ben Cline, along with Andy Biggs, our other good friend in the House Freedom Caucus, we will be a couple of those managers. I think they'll make a great case. Mayorkas has made the case for them. Obviously, 10 million illegals, nearly 11 now, who've invaded the country under his watch, as he's intentionally violated existing law. He has not fulfilled the oath of his the obligation that he made to the Constitution, the oath that he took to the Constitution to keep Americans safe and secure, to defend us, defend the Constitution, defend the United States. While I don't have a lot of optimism, I'm sure you do not either, with respect to the Senate and how seriously they'll take this and what kind of consideration they will give us. We in the House are responsible for what we do. And it's our job to impeach a president or administration official, a cabinet official, if they are, we believe, worthy of impeachment, worthy of removal. And if Mayorkas is not, I don't know who is. So I think they'll make an outstanding case. I think the American people recognize he should be removed. I hear about it all the time from our constituents. And at least it's sending a warning shot to the Biden administration that we're not going to just continue to allow them to violate their oath of office, to violate the Constitution, to lie to Congress, to fail to execute their responsibilities.
Well, what about the senators? Certainly Texas has conservative senators, Ted Cruz, but Arizona, California, I understand this has become quite a big part of their Senate race, Steve Garvey versus Adam Schiff. Are there senators that are pliable from places like Arizona and Nevada that might be at some point saying, listen, whether it's Joe Biden's approval ratings or the swing state polls or those kind of things, Bob, could there be a surprise like a Joe Manchin from some of these southwestern states?
Well, you would hope, in particular, Arizona. Arizona is a swing state. It's hard to imagine. How did they elect Katie Hobbs, to become governor with what's going on in that state, the invasion that's being taken place and the suffering that people are experiencing under Joe Biden's policy? How could you vote for a Democrat in a swing state, in a purple state? Now with Sinema apparently not running again, and it'll be Republican, I presume Kari Lake. I think that will be an opportunity for Republican pickup in Arizona. I certainly hope so. California, it's hard to predict that you're dominated by San Francisco and LA and just the population base, and they seem to vote Democrat, obviously in increasing numbers, irrespective of what's happening, the harm that's being done by Newsom and Biden to them. The media would have us believe that Texas is in play and that Ted Cruz is at risk.
Right.
I certainly don't think that's the case. I expect Ted Cruz will win. It's hard to imagine that Texans, who are being overrun like no one else with the largest part of the border, and as Governor Abbott, Lieutenant Governor Patrick have tried to stand in the breach, stand in the gap, and defend the state, and the Biden administration has fought them at every turn in their efforts to do that. It's hard to imagine they would vote for a Democrat senator. I certainly hope that's not the case. And of course, Democrats presume that immigrants and minorities want illegal invasion.
Right.
They do not.
Yeah,
they do not. They want lawful legal immigration just like we do.
Well, and so many of them, are infuriated. I just saw a poll, Congressman Good on with us, and I appreciate your time on this Monday morning, and we'll let you get going on this. But a poll that said black community, the support for President Biden's reelection is down to 61%. This was a Quinnipiac poll, and in the Latino community, it's under 50. He's lost. The Latino community. He's out in Wisconsin today trying to come up with another scheme that'll nationalize the college tuition industry there, Bob. I mean, it seems more and more desperate, but it's got to become so obvious that in these places that these groups that have been subject of the president and that party's pandering for so many years are starting to wake up and walk away.
It is. It looks like President Trump is polling somewhere in the range of 25% in the Black community, African American community in this country. If he gets 15%, Joe Biden is toast. And to your point, he's polling much, much higher with Hispanics. And so these are typical or standard demographic voting blocks. If President Trump is doing as well as the polls would indicate, then he's going to be the next president. He's going to be reelected to his second term, and the American people are certainly better off for it.
Well, Congressman Good, thank you so much for your time. Again, it's good.house.gov, and have a good week. I think we're going to try to reschedule and get our normal routines back, so you can join us on Friday to take us through the week that was. But I appreciate you kind of doing this Make Good, because it was just a weird week. My wife was getting tired of me just sitting at the kitchen table talking for 4 hours. She said, "You better get some sort of show back on the air."
So on the air. Well, congrats on the new format. Look forward to being with you again real soon. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you. He is Virginia 5th District Congressman Bob Good on Joe Thomas in the Morning.
Some much milder weather headed our way, but also some showers. We'll call it for your Monday, some isolated showers, mostly sunny, afternoon highs around 70, mostly cloudy and 51 on Monday night. Tuesday, a chance of showers mainly in the afternoon, even warmer, mostly cloudy and 75, chance of showers Tuesday night and 58. Wednesday through Friday, we're in the low and mid 70s, but showers are around. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford on Joe Thomas in the Morning.
Joe Thomas in the Morning, and we said we're going to try to do this a little differently for right now, because we can't do live audio. So what we've been trying to do is get your voicemails into the queue, and then playing those back for you as you go. So here's our friend Dr. Clark, who is a regular participant. Let's see if we can get him in his.
Hey, Joe, great to see you back. Came in late due to signal issues on my end. When you mentioned my name, for the first time in my life, I felt like the romper room lady could see me through the magic mirror. Now, on Kathy Hochul and the Eclipse sunglasses, I'm trying to figure out why they don't have an Eclipse vaccine. Apparently, they didn't have enough lead notice to come up with a solar eclipse vaccination. Otherwise, they'd be putting that out there. Great to see you and hear you. Looking forward to it.
That was Dr. Clark. You remember, I sometimes wonder if I'm not the only person who remembers some of these programs like Romper Room, because I remember that being she would look into the magic mirror and say, who's being, and this became quite a thing back in the 70s, who's being a good doobie or not. And then I got this voicemail, and let's see what this one is.
Good morning, Joe, and congratulations on your YouTube cast. This is John Morgan calling from New York State. The last time that I listened to you live or quasi-live, you will remember I was signing off on your time card every 2 weeks. I wish you well, and I also want to ask from your perspective as a station owner to be, what is the most important part of a newscast? And I would expect the answer from that perspective is the commercial. Have a great day. All the best. Thank you.
So John Morgan there was our program director. We worked for a while back in a part of the country where they pronounce the word Monticello. not Monticello, but in upstate, quasi-upstate New York, financial advisor, excellent in the Hudson Valley of Kathy Hochulville there. And you see, as a station owner, it's not the commercial that's the most important because, and this gets back, and I'll mention this as well, the which came first, the chicken or the egg? Which comes first, the weather forecast or the commercial or the sponsor? And the important thing is to remember there's nothing to sponsor if there's not a weather forecast or a newscast or even a conversation program that goes on to break down the stories of the day. So we'll do this again tomorrow. Hopefully the internet, and I was done in by technology that said, oh, yeah, you lost the internet for a little while, but we connected back up and we're fine. I don't know what we were connected to. I may have to figure that one out, but we'll be back here tomorrow morning at 6. Like I said, we're going to reach out to Congressman Klein, who's going to get busy as Alejandro Mayorkas's manager of the impeachment proceedings and dig into more stuff there. Mac will be back with another notebook. Obviously, National Basketball Championships will be convening, and Tommy will have our forecasts for us as well, and your messages. So you see, that part, at least to our credit, worked there. And I think most things did once we figured out one of the switches I needed to throw, especially getting to see Mac for his sports broadcast there. But I appreciate everyone who tuned in. I apologize for the stuff that was missing there in between 6 and 6:20 and about 7:30 there. It was good. I swear to goodness, it was interesting. I was interested in listening to myself, but hopefully we'll be able to keep it all connected tomorrow. Remember, as our sponsors say, use us or it's your own asphalt. And we'll be back tomorrow morning. Until then, so long, and thanks for all the fish.